The light heavyweight debut of Chris Daukaus coming down from the heavyweight division as he'll be taking on Khalil Rountree Jr. Khalil Rountree is a minus 175 betting favorite, plus 150 for Chris Daukaus, and on DraftKings, Rountree is 8,900 and Daukaus is 7,300. Pete.
Yeah, I cannot trust Chris Daukaus at all. I just can't. I can't trust a guy who's been knocked out in his past 3 fights, despite it being at the heavyweight division. Now he's going to cut weight, where potentially weight cuts affect your chin. And now he's going to go up in a dangerous striking matchup against Khalil Rountree, who has victories over Dustin Jacoby, Carl Roberson, Modestas Bukauskas, Eric Anders, Gokhan Saki. I'm not going to do it from a pick standpoint, but from an exposure standpoint, of course, I'm going to get to a light heavyweight Chris Daukaus at 7,300. So let me just explain how I mean that. I cannot, with any confidence, pick Chris Daukaus, but I understand that there are paths to victory for him. He has yet to attempt a takedown in the UFC. His back is clearly against the wall, and his job is on the line, in my opinion. We know that he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He should go out there and just be a well-rounded mixed martial artist. Fell in love with his hands, and that's one of the most dangerous things that can happen in MMA is when a grappler or a wrestler falls in love with their hands, and they get away from what brought them to the dance. Now, Chris Daukaus always threw good combinations, always enjoyed striking more than grappling. But clearly in this matchup, man, you as a coach, you need to get in Daukaus' ear and say, hey, let's initiate some grappling. Because if you do so, you can beat a Khalil Rountree. If you stay on the outside and go tit for tat with Khalil Rountree, I think Rountree's going to pick him apart and possibly finish him. You know, this is a guy that has knocked down several people. Knocked down Carl Roberson twice. Knocked down Modestas Bukauskas once. Knocked down Eric Anders 4 times. And now you're going up against a guy whose durability is in question in Chris Daukaus. As far as picks go, I like Khalil Rountree at 8,900. But you know, and I say it every week, there's volatility in certain weight classes and in certain instances. And in the light heavyweight and heavyweight weight classes, get to some of these underdogs because one shot changes everything. And Khalil Rountree is also a guy that has been relatively inconsistent throughout his career. Like he lost a matchup to Marcin Prachnio, a guy that I do not think is good. I mean, he's picked up wins, but I just don't think he's good. So the pick is 8,900 Khalil Rountree. Exposure-wise, Chris Daukaus, in my opinion, will probably be one of the most popular underdogs in hopes that he refines his form. And I'll treat it accordingly. I think the ownership that I'm looking at right now is fine. I'd probably like a little bit more Khalil Rountree.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me is I do want to see what does Chris Daukaus look like on the scale tomorrow. That to me is the first thing. And I do believe that over the next 6 months, we are going to see a lot of fighters switching weight classes to 205 pounds because they look at that path to getting into the top 10 as a pretty clear path. And for Daukaus, even though he has never won a fight via submission, that submission prop is a little juicy to me, plus 1,400 for Daukaus to win based via submission. But like this is like we talk about this a lot. Is there's fighters on a fight card that you're just like, man, I don't trust them. Yeah. And I put both these guys, like you mentioned about Khalil, inconsistency. There are times like you remember the Eric Anders fight? I was like, holy crap. He came out there and he looked like a guy who could contend for a title. And then you mentioned like the Prachnio fight. Like then you see that one, you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, when Khalil was training in Thailand, he came over and he looked like incredible. He looked like Bangkok ready Khalil Rountree, and then next thing you know, he's going to follow up losing to 𝗕𝗂𝘆 𝗙𝗶𝗵𝗵, which is fine. He's dangerous, but losing to Marcin Prachnio, like every fighter's going to have ugly losses. That's a real ugly loss. That thing smells. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Chris Daukaus, he's leaps and bounds ahead of Marcin Prachnio. So
Daukaus has to wrestle. I mean, he has to wrestle.
He can outstrike Khalil. He could, but I think that's the dumbest strategy out there. Mm-hmm. Like because Khalil sometimes is just a little gun shy. But I think that he should wrestle.
You would think. Over at Prize Picks, I don't really love a lot over there. I mean, if you were going to play anything, I'd probably say more than 24.5 significant strikes on Khalil Rountree. I mean, but the fight time is 5 minutes. I don't trust the gas tank of Chris Daukaus. So that's kind of there. And I mean, the fantasy score of 103.5 on Khalil Rountree, I wouldn't touch, but I understand why you may get